Well, welcome to the final office hours for COIS ADMN 1620. We are at the end of the course. So all that remains at this point here in the end of module 6 is for you guys to make sure that you've gone ahead and done the quizzes and the practices for chapters 11, 12, and 13. They are due tonight. That's just a reminder, a not very subtle reminder. Your course is officially over tonight at 11:59:00. So you need to submit those by that time. Okay, guys, it's not the whole term. It's been Friday night for all of our deliveries. It is Thursday night because this is the final day of the course. Okay, so speaking of that, the next most important thing that we are probably all here to talk about is the final exam. If I look at my Trent, it tells me that the ADMN and the COIS 1620 final exam is on Wednesday, April the 19th at 7 p.m. It also tells me that location 1 is the gym. That's the Peterborough location. It tells me that location 2 is in Durham, DRA 116. So I will be in Durham. That's where I'll be invigilating. The workshop leaders that have marked many of your discussions will be the ones that are invigilating in Peterborough at the gym. The exam itself is 3 hours long. You were given an opportunity probably about 4 weeks ago now to determine where you want to write your exam. You had 3 choices. You could have chosen Peterborough, Durham, or online. If you chose online, that's through our Examity service. You were then asked to schedule an appointment for the specific time that you would write in Examity. If you are one of the people that lives somewhere that's not close to Peterborough, it's not close to Durham, and you have failed to make a choice, you will be expected to be in Peterborough. The caveat to that is unless you can talk your way into the good graces of the people at online at trentu.ca and get them to help you schedule with Examity. At this late time, there's every chance that you will be out of luck. You will have to look at that as being your fault because you were given the opportunity for a 2-week period to enroll and given specific and explicit instructions, which I repeated during the office hours. If you haven't made a choice, your choice has been made for you and you're expected to be in Peterborough. So if you're going to use Examity as the service, if you chose Examity, remember that you have to have a good internet connection. I would suggest having a backup plan in case. Obviously, a computer. You'll need a working microphone and a working webcam. So those are absolute requirements. You show up to the Examity exam and you don't have a working microphone, you won't be writing the exam. That's just the rules with Examity. If you have problems, and hopefully it doesn't happen to anyone, but it does periodically seem to happen, I can't help you with Examity. Online at trentu.ca is the way that you want to go. Send them an email. They are there to support students. They are available, I think it's from 8 a.m. until 10 p.m. every day. So if you're writing at a time that's not in that range, like say you're writing at 3 a.m. Local time, you're not going to have support, but you'll have to document whatever problems that you're experiencing, okay? Every so often, there'll be confusion over time zones. I've seen obviously with thousands of students having gone through my classes, I've seen all forms of problems. Every so often there's a new one. One of the things that comes up often is that people make a miscalculation on the time zone. Make sure you know exactly when you're writing. If you miss showing up for your Examity, or you show up 2 hours late or whatever, there will be no rescheduling. So please know when you're writing, make sure you show up appropriately, and if the problem is at the other end, if you show up on time to your scheduled appointment and for some reason a proctor doesn't show up at the other end, don't panic. Just document that. Send an email to online@trentu.ca. You can copy me on it, but there's not much that I'll be able to do. We will deal with problems that are at our end, not at your end. But you are responsible for showing up. Just like if you show up at, an hour and 15 minutes late to the exam, you show up at 8:15, you come to the gym at Peterborough, you won't be allowed in. That's just not allowed. There's a whole set of rules around exams, and being more than an hour late means that you don't get to start the exam. Okay. So the exam itself, which is what probably everyone here wants to know about, is I'm getting repeated pop-ups saying it's unable to establish a secure collection. Is everyone able to hear me all right? Just by thumbs up or thumbs down? Okay. Got most people, yeah. Okay.
You can.
You can? Okay. Okay. I'm just getting these repeated pop-ups, and I've never experienced that before, so I didn't want to be wasting your time. So the exam itself is 150 multiple choice and multiple answer questions. Okay. So I think I could be wrong. I be prepared for multiple answer, but I think it's actually all multiple choice. Let me actually just check that. Bear with me for 1 second and I'll check that just so that I'm making sure that I'm giving you guys the right information. But it's 150 questions and you have 3 hours to do it. So you've got 180 minutes to do 150 questions. There are no aids allowed. So you've got to prepare and come to the exam knowing knowing the course material. It'll draw from the entire course, right from the very first to the very end. It will include the tech guides. So if you include the 4 tech guides, we covered 13 chapters and 4 tech guides. So there's 17 chapters altogether. It will draw from all 17. Okay. Just bear with me for a second. I'm just checking on the types of questions. I'm pretty sure they're all, excuse me, multiple choice. So, yeah, they're all multiple choice questions. So not multiple answer, but multiple choice. You have to choose one answer for each of them, just a single answer. So what that means for those of you that are writing in person is that you want to bring a pencil or two, because you're going to be using a Scantron sheet, those sheets where you shade in the little ovals, and you'll be choosing A through E for each one. So there'll be no short answer. There'll be no written answer questions in this course. Okay, I'm just scrolling through the questions here. You keep getting that pop-up too. Okay. Where is the exam in Durham campus? So the answer to that question is, if you go to your My Trent and look in the top right corner, you've got an exam schedule. It says location 2 is DRA 116. I'm not 100% sure where that room is. I will just go there. I think it's just room 116 in the main building, the older building, excuse me, but I'm not sure of that. Show up a little bit early, make sure you can get to it. There's lots of signage there. If you've never been on campus there, it's not a very big campus. So there's 2 buildings. There's the one building that's to the east, that's the older building, and then there's the newer, taller building that is to the west, and they are literally a 15-second walk between them. So once you're there, you're in good shape. I got that pop up, but hear me. Can you please confirm it's all multiple choice, or if there's a short answer? It is all multiple choice, 100% multiple choice. 150 multiple choice questions is your entire exam. 3 hours. We've got 3 hours to do this. Are we allowed to bring cheat sheets? There are no aids. You are not allowed to bring any cheat sheets at all. We will need a pencil, not a pen, correct. Yeah, it's not that you can't do it with a pen, but the problem becomes when you make a mistake or you change your mind or whatever, it's really hard to erase the pen such that the Scantron machine doesn't pick up the faint residue. Even if you erase it really hard, it doesn't come away. So you'll want, I would bring 2 to 3 pencils and I would bring an eraser to do this exam. So the other thing that I should say to you is I will be checking IDs, as will, if you're online, if you're in Peterborough, or if you're in Durham, your IDs are going to be checked. So bring your Trent ID, your picture ID. If you don't have one for whatever reason, a driver's license or other official picture ID will be adequate. But you have to be able to identify yourself. Okay, it's best, like I said, to use your Trent ID, but it's not absolutely necessary. Bring ID. Okay. Is the weight equal for all chapters, or is it random? It is random. So you could end up with more weight now. So there's kind of 2 answers to that question, because the people that are writing online are going to just randomly have questions. And the people that write in Peterborough and Durham, I'm obviously going to have to print out those questions. You won't be writing it online. You'll be reading a piece of paper and answering questions that way. So I will be making conscious choices as to which questions. So it'll probably be a lot less random. It'll be more evenly distributed. Okay. But there's more questions in general in the pool for, say, chapter 3 than there is for Tech Guide 1, right? The smaller tech guides don't have as many questions, so it'll be weighted by content, no matter what. But it is somewhat random. Okay. Are there going to be any questions from the case studies in the textbook? So if we mean, so the case studies, if you mean what's actually in the text, yes, those would certainly be possible, absolutely possible. If you mean the discussions that I provided, no, the answer is no. There'll be no questions on the discussions that I chose, just what's in the text. Everything, every word that's in that text is examinable. Okay, so I want to offer some advice because I like offering advice. Most students under-prepare for this exam. I've done this lots of times. The marks are significantly worse on the final exam than they are on the midterm. That's a direct result of the midterm being open book. This is a closed book exam, so whatever you know coming in is what you're going to be able to answer. So there's a lot more preparation that's required for a closed book exam than there is for an open book exam. Okay, in a course like this, that may not hold true if you're doing a physics exam or something different where it's formulas that are making the open book and it's just as hard. You just have the formulas in front of you. But in a course like this, in my experience, most students, and it's usually about 15 to 20%, the average of the final is 15 to 20% lower than the midterm. People that have been diligent and have been doing all their quizzes, and they've been doing their discussions and things like that and keeping up with the course, often have a really, really, really good mark. And that's not to say that they won't keep a really, really good mark, because they're often the people that are most diligent. But there are certainly a huge group of students that get a sense of false confidence because they got an 80% on the midterm, and they think they're going to show up and get an 80% on the final without adequate preparation, and that is disastrous in terms of the mark they get on the final. Now, the final is worth, I believe, 25%. Just verifying that. Yep, the final is worth 25%. So it's very significant. If you do really poorly on the final, it's going to be hard to get a really good mark. If you've been doing all the quizzes and stuff, you're going to be in a pretty good position, but you should be, over the next couple of weeks, you should be studying the textbook. You should be, and by studying, I don't mean casually reading while watching TV. I mean actually reading it and trying to make sure that you retain it. Okay. And again, this is just advice, do what you want. But my experience over every single time I've taught this course, and I think this is my 13th or 14th time teaching the course, is that people do surprisingly to them poorly on the final compared to the midterm. Okay. Good luck to everyone. I agree. Good luck. Are there going to be any case? Are the questions similar to the practice and quizzes? So the questions are going to be more similar to the quizzes. Okay. The practices was what we call adaptive. So it would continue giving you questions so that you'd have an opportunity. If you were having trouble with one section or one area, it would continue giving you an opportunity to go ahead and do well in that area until you could get perfect overall. The quizzes, some of the questions will be identical to the quizzes, but this is a different pool, or a partially different pool of questions. There will be questions that you certainly have not seen already in the course, but I mean, the material is all very similar. We don't, fair enough. You didn't have a midterm in this course. I've done midterms in the past. In this one, we've had practices and quizzes, and we've got people with very, very good averages going in that will under-prepare for the final, thinking that that it's as easy as it's been with open book. Don't underestimate how much reliance you've placed on the open book when you've done your quizzes and your practices. Sorry, you're absolutely right, and I misspoke. Are there additional practice questions we can access on the online resources? Not that I'm aware of. I don't make a practice exam for people to work on. My rationale for that is when I have done that, a very small percentage of people have bothered to do that, and I want people to, if they're interested in doing well, I want them to prepare by going through the textbook and actually studying old school. Do I have an estimate of how much time we should put into preparing? That's hard for me to estimate. It's going to depend very much on how quickly you read, how much you retain when you read. What I would say is that it's worth a quarter of all of your marks in the course. So it's worth putting the effort in. If I was approaching it and I was playing my A game, and I recognize there's lots of reasons, lots of distractions in life, lots of competing interests and things that are competing for your time, including other classes. You've got almost 2 full weeks at this point, right? You got 2 weeks less than a day to your exam. That'd be 13 days. If you read 1 to 2 chapters per day, in that time, you would do very, very well. If you wait until the day before and you try and read the entire book, you're just not going to absorb it at the same level. I would be going ahead, reviewing, like maybe tomorrow being a lovely holiday with what you'd rather do nothing other than work on Trent stuff. I'd be reading chapter 1 and 2. And then the next day on Saturday, I'd be reading 3 and 4. And I would just work my way through that way, and I would make sure that I understood. There's lots of recurring themes in the text. There's lots of stuff that we talk about over and over again. Make sure that you understand those. Take a look at, like, if you look in my course content and at the beginning of every chapter, it tells you what the goals are for the chapter. When you've read that chapter, go back to that and make sure that you understand the answers to those questions or to those statements. Okay. And I'm just gonna scroll to my course content here. I've left the modules open for you on purpose. Like, for instance, when I look at module 6 here, there are actually 16, which is a pretty big number, 16 learning outcomes. But once you've read through the 3 chapters, 11, 12, and 13, you should be able to know what the vast majority of those 16 are. And if you're finding that you don't know most of them, then you need to kind of revisit those chapters. Okay. Do we see our mark right away when we complete it online? No, you don't. So here's the way Trent works. I am not allowed to release, and no one is, your final exam marks, period. You'll be able to calculate them because you're smart people and you've got every other mark and you'll know what you got on it, but I can't release it. The process is you finish your exam. I have 10 days to mark it. Now it's going to be auto marked. It's going to go to a Scantron or be auto marked if you write it online. So there's not a lot of involvement for myself and the workshop leaders in this particular exam. But I then, once I've got everyone done, I upload the mark to the administration. I have to do that within 10 days of the time that you write the exam. I'll be doing it substantially faster than that because, again, I don't have a lot of marking to do like I do in some other courses. I upload it and they release it on their schedule. I'm not sure what their process is. I don't know what they're looking at or testing or anything like that, but it is the administration that releases the marks to you. It will not be in the course in Blackboard. You'll never see your final mark there. And that is across the board, my understanding, for every single course in Trent. So I'm not allowed to release your final mark to you. I'm not allowed to release your exam mark to you. Okay. So don't pepper me with when I haven't seen my final mark yet, sir, or Prof, or Andy, or however you address me. I can't give it to you. I won't give it to you. I am prompt. I will definitely, as soon as I can, get it uploaded. And usually, in my experience, it's within a day or two that the administration releases it, but that's on them. I don't know what their process is, like I said. So worst case scenario, I would say, would be approximately, let's say, 2 weeks after the exam is when you'd be surprised not to see it. But again, I can't help you. What I have to do is get the marks within 10 days to the administration, then they release them on their schedule. Okay, guys? I apologize for talking about a midterm that didn't exist. That's just a bad habit. I'm used to doing midterms in all my courses, and I chose for this course in the last couple or few years not to do that, and instead do the practice, which I think works out pretty well because it makes sure people understand the content pretty well. So, are there any other questions? And you're welcome to jump in audio, video if you want, or shoot them to me privately in the chat. You're more than welcome to do that, or put them publicly in the chat, whichever you prefer. As always, I will post this office hours. Can you? Oh, that's a great question. Thanks, Cassandra. I try to cover that. The way I always do exams, if you're writing online, which I think is what you're referring to, Cassandra, all the questions will be available. I'm not one of these people that makes each question available individually. Your entire exam will be available to you. You'll be able to go back and forth and do whatever you want. If you're writing online, and by default you have the 3 hours, assuming no accommodation beyond that, let's say you have the 3 hour period to do that, you can even pause. You can save your answers and pause your exam. It doesn't stop the clock though. Okay. The clock continues to tick. Once you've started your exam, that's when the clock starts. Okay. What kind of questions can on the exam exactly? That's a really difficult thing to answer. You've seen all sorts of different, it's a multiple choice question. It could be absolutely anything with 4 or 5 choices as to what the best answer is. And it will automatically save your answers right. So it auto submits. At the end of the 3 hours, it's going to auto submit. for you, Cassandra. I would always save. I'm that guy, right? I'm always nervous about technology, but it is an auto submit when you're writing online. It's after your period, whatever your period is for that exam, it will auto submit for you. Okay. I hope anyone that hasn't done an exam with Examity, there is a practice or a way of testing the way the Examity works that you should do. Make sure, don't leave it to the last minute, guys. You got enough stress on the day of an exam. You don't want to figure out that you don't know what you're doing with Examity at that point. So do use the resources provided. If you're writing in person, it's going to be very simple. We'll walk you through. You're gonna get your Scantrons and you're gonna put in your name. It's worth mentioning that even though you put in your name and your student number into your Scantron, I always ask you to write your name out in full on the Scantron. Every year, there's a few people that get their student number wrong for whatever reason. Okay. They may only be off by one digit, or they may switch a digit with another, 53 instead of 35 or whatever. The problem is if your student number doesn't match, that's how I associate marks. So if your student number doesn't match, then I can go back to the actual Scantron and go, oh, that's Elizabeth Smith that incorrectly put her student number in. I will attribute the mark to her. Okay, everything connects by student number. And if you make a mistake on that, you're under, again, pressure. Please do write your name on the Scantron card if you're writing in person. Good to know when you save, you can change. Yes, you can definitely, you're saving, but you can always go back. There's no, once you put in an answer, you can go back and revise that answer as many times as long as you still have time left. Okay. So be careful. There's a difference between saving and submitting. Okay. There's a save where you can resume and go back to it. Submitting ends your exam. Once you've submitted, you're done. Okay. So just be careful that way. Now, if you're online, there's going to be a proctor there, and they're going to be asking you questions. If you haven't experienced this, if this is your first time with Examity, they will have you take your webcam and show the room, and and you'll be talking to them before. Don't worry. So let's say you've scheduled your exam for 9 p.m. So you've got a 9 till midnight exam time. You meet with your proctor. Your time doesn't start until you start your exam. So if it takes 10 minutes, the proctor's asking you questions, or whatever's going on, until you actually start your exam, the clock doesn't start. It's not from the time that you're scheduled, it's from the time you actually start. And the same thing, obviously, in real life when you're writing live with me. I'll be giving you instructions. If I start the exam at 4 minutes after 7, you'll have till 4 minutes after 10 to write it. Okay. Another thing I wanted to say is those of you with SAS accommodations, that will be built in automatically to the online exam if you choose to write it online. If you're writing it on paper, then you're going to go to the SAS people and you're going to arrange to write your exam. You're going to make an appointment with them, and I'll be providing exams there. It's important to know, just going on a side trip here for just 1 second, it's important to know that I distribute exams based on where people have chosen to be. So if you choose to be in Durham, but you decide at the last minute you're going to go to Peterborough, if we run out of exams in Peterborough, you're going to be short an exam. So you are committed to going wherever you chose. And if you didn't choose, you're committed to Peterborough. I will have a list, and I will be providing the right number of exams for Peterborough and the right number of exams for Durham. Okay. Obviously, I send a couple extra here and there, but I don't have an extra 50 exams in Peterborough or 50 exams in Durham, right? So what I was going to say about the SAS accommodation is, as far as your time multiplier, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to remind me. I take every single SAS notification and I incorporate that into the course, and you will automatically, if you're writing online, you'll automatically be given your correct amount of time. Okay, so don't worry about that. We have enough people that have accommodations that I don't want to get into answering every single one and confirming. I have a process I follow through. If for some reason I mess that up and you didn't get enough time, then that is a mistake that I will have to account for, and we can talk about that after the exam, and I will properly accommodate you. That has not happened in the 9 years that I've done that. Doesn't mean I won't make a mistake this time, but I'm very, very careful to go through my list and make sure everyone's getting the proper accommodation for those of you that are SAS accommodated students. Okay. Any other questions, guys? Anything that I haven't covered or I haven't been clear about, or anything that maybe about the course that you need to know? I am available. Like, this is our last office hours, but if you have specific questions, feel free to email me. I will do my very best to respond to those. If it's a question that I've covered in the office hours, as some of you already know, my response will be watch the office hours, because I do try to not, have to repetitively answer the same question over and over. So yeah. So yeah, so I'm just looking at the response, that it's going to be just like the quizzes. You think, yeah, it's going to be a variety. It's going to be absolutely a variety. Like I said, some of the questions that you've already seen in quizzes, you may recognize in the exam as well. So, are we allowed to leave during the exam to go to the washroom? I'm presuming, are you speaking about writing in person, like at Trent and Peterborough or Trent and Durham? Is that the question? In person. Yes, you absolutely are. So the requirement, though, is that only one person is out of the exam room at a time. Okay. The way I run it in Durham is you just put up your hand, you say, can I go to the washroom? I say yes. And then the next person that needs to go to the washroom has to wait until you get back from the washroom. Okay. It's never been a problem. I'm not going to cause anyone any huge distress, but you certainly can use the washroom. There's probably rules about food and drink and things like that. There's a set of rules that I will read to everyone in Durham before we get started. Things like you can't leave for the first hour. You're just asked not to leave the exam for the first hour, no matter how poorly that goes for you or how quickly you get done. You stay there for the first hour. And I think it's the last 10 or 20 minutes that you're asked not to leave the exam either. So if you get down to the last 20 minutes, out of respect for your fellow students that may be just really trying to get the last few marks, we try and keep it so that you're not walking out of the room making the noise, going up to the front, grabbing your bags, going, so on and so forth. Kamsi, go ahead.
Can one use the restroom, like if the person is taking an exam online?
Yes, absolutely. I've said that people can have as many restroom breaks as they want online. If the proctor thinks that there's a problem, like if you're taking 20 breaks and you go out of the room 20 times, then they're going to report that to me, and we'll make a decision at that point. But yeah, you're certainly allowed to use the washroom. Are you able to online for the same question? So I think I covered that, right? Cassandra, you were asking about the washroom? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the way Examity works is I send them the parameters. I tell them what is permissible for the exam, and I certainly did say that it was permissible to go ahead and use the washroom. Okay. Any other questions, guys? Oh, I saw. What is the average usually? That's a tough one, but my experience or my guess for the average would be 61 to 65%. There's certainly people that do really, really, really well, and get. And there's going to be people in this class. Okay, again, just based on experience, there's going to be 15% of the class that fails. 5% of the class never showed up, didn't do anything in the course. 10% didn't do that much, and they failed. They may or may not write the final exam at all. There's going to be 20% of people that get an A or better. And then the vast majority of people are going to be in the, let's say, 50 to 70 range. And then, you know, the rest of the people are going to be under 50. So that's what usually happens. But if we're just talking about the final exam, it's usually in the 61 to 65 range is my experience. Okay. I don't know, Nicholas, what an A is. I'll believe Aiden, 80 plus. I don't do that. I just submit a numerical mark and the school takes care of the grades. If someone arrives late to the campus, will they be given extra time? Absolutely not. The exam in person ends at one time for everybody. Like I said earlier, if you arrive more than an hour late, you will not be permitted in the exam. That will be a 0 on the exam, okay? Obviously, you get in a car accident, you have a verifiable illness, all those sorts of things. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the person that just shows up late without a legitimate and palatable excuse. They forget the exams that day. They sleep in. They, you know, whatever the reason is. If it's not a doctor's note or something of that level, you're not going to get an opportunity to rewrite the exam. Okay. Do you think it's worth stressing about getting a 90 in the course? So, I mean, that's a good question, but it just depends. I'm a super competitive person. That may have come through in you guys watching me and interacting with me in office hours. I don't know. I had a 4.0 grade point average in my master's. I like to get as good a mark as I can. So that's not stress to me. That's just hyper competitiveness. I think that what you have to do is you have to look at what sort of performance you're going to get in all your courses and how much of your limited resources you can spend on each course. This is a course that you can do very, very well in, and people are going to do very, very well in, for sure. There's going to be some people that are in the mid to high 90s in this course. Absolutely. So that's just a personal question. That's a decision you have to make for yourself. Is there a way to check my exam location again? That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. And the reason is because I don't have any access to that. I've requested from Trent Online that in another week or so that I will get a list of where everyone's writing so that I know how many exams to send everywhere. But I don't want to get in a situation where I've got 300 students asking me where they're supposed to write. I would think that there would have been a confirmation email that came back to you acknowledging your choice. Yeah, if you didn't do anything, if you don't recall making a choice, then your location's Peterborough. Okay. My Trent under academics. So when you say that, I'm just okay. This is new to me. So there's a place where you can see where you've elected to write your exam in my Trent. That's fantastic. Thank you. What is, if you don't mind, can you navigate to that and just tell me what it is? Where exactly it is under exam schedule, maybe full list. Is that where it is? web course exam location preference, web course exam location preference. Okay, so mine's a little different. I don't have that option. I'm obviously not writing any exams. So that's excellent. So my academics exam schedule student list. Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that. So there's the answer to that. There's sometimes, I mean, obviously my perspective is different. I don't have all the same buttons. I have different buttons than you guys. So I did not know that, but thank you. Thank you to Aiden and to Cassandra for helping everyone out there. All right, guys, if you don't have any further questions, get on with your evening. Have a great, hopefully long weekend. If you're celebrating Easter, enjoy that. Regardless, don't waste your time. Don't let this, there's an opportunity to get a good mark in this course. There's some of you that are going to need to do well on the exam to get the 50 or 60 that you want. So, like I said, if I were you, I'd be starting to read a chapter or two a day, and then it wouldn't be too painful by the time you get a couple weeks from now and we're all together writing the exam. So thank you very much for coming. Thanks for great questions. Thanks for great information from the people that provided feedback. Yes, the questions are similar to the quizzes. Yes, absolutely. Not necessarily the same. Some will be the same. They will be similar in style to the quizzes. Same people wrote the questions. Okay, guys, so get on with your evening. Thank you very much for showing up. Thank you for a great semester too. I do appreciate it. I hope everyone gets the mark that they want, and in proportion to the effort that you put into it. I hope that it works out well for you. And good luck on the final. Thanks, guys.